Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's Saturday, May 13th, 12:30 p.m. here in Chicago. So just a really short video about Frank Martin versus Keyshawn Davis, if that fight were to ever happen. And then I'll update you real quick on some track and field. So Derrick James has come out and said that, he's, for those of you who don't know, he's Frank Martin's trainer. He has come out and said, what's the point of a Frank Martin versus Keyshawn Davis fight? And then he goes on to say, despite what Keyshawn wants, Top Rank, it's their job to build him up and find the right fighters for him. And if he were to lose, that hurts his career. And then, he doesn't want to deal with Top Rank, even though he's the one who wanted to fight. What is Derrick James talking about? See, this is what I don't like. What's the point? You're in boxing because you are supposed to be fighting the best in your division. Keyshawn Davis, Derrick James acts as though Frank Martin is just so many levels above Keyshawn Davis. To ask what's the point of the fight, I think that's an insult. It's disrespectful. And then to say it's Top Rank's job to find good fighters for him. A good fighter for him is Frank Martin. Okay, I don't know what it is with people making excuses when Keyshawn Davis says he wants to fight Frank Martin. The man wants Frank Martin. Frank Martin isn't some, extremely exceptional, extremely powerful fighter that's just going to stop Keyshawn in one round. Keyshawn has a very good chance of winning that fight, in my opinion. Even if I do have Frank Martin to edge out the win, it's not like there's so many levels between them. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I don't see it. And I don't think Derrick James sees it either. So I don't know why he's hiding behind this. What's the point of that fight? He's going to lose, and they're supposed to build him up. Why are you worrying about what they're supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be worrying about your fighter. Keyshawn is a very good fighter. And a lot of people, they're going to hide behind that too because they're caught up in the whole Bud versus Spence saga. And, they'll see Keyshawn Davis as a threat to Frank Martin, mainly because Keyshawn Davis is part of Bud's camp. The same reason why people find reasons to shit on Shakur. They try to act like they don't like the fact that Shakur at first said he wants Devin Haney, but then he said, well, there's the business side and then there's me wanting the best side. At the end of the day, people just don't like really to see Shakur or Keyshawn get these fights because if they were to win, people see it as a knock against Team Spence as opposed to Team Bud. People aren't going to admit it, but it's the whole Bud camp versus Spence camp, which is why they don't like Keyshawn or Shakur. But I digress. Back to Keyshawn. The man has said several times he wants to fight Frank Martin. There's nothing wrong with that fight. That's a very good fight. That's a very competitive fight. Keyshawn Davis is a great fighter. He ain't no slouch. And again, even if Frank Martin were to win, it would not be a blowout. I promise you, it would not be a blowout. It would be a very competitive fight, even if you have Frank Martin winning. I actually think Frank Martin would edge out a win versus Keyshawn, but I don't see it as some fight that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And that's kind of like what Derrick James is trying to allude to. No, make the fight happen. Stop making excuses. These people do not want to see Keyshawn fight Frank Martin. And again, they're able to hide behind, they don't think Frank Martin, is on the same level as Keyshawn. Keyshawn needs to build up. Yeah, Keyshawn doesn't have a lot of fights, but look at Frank Martin's record. He doesn't have such an abundance of fights either. Let the fight happen. So this is one time where I strongly disagree with Derrick James. And every once in a while, Derrick James, he will say something that's full of cap. He's done that before. So I like him a lot, but he's not without without fault in terms of some of the things he says, in my opinion. And for him to say, what's the point of the fight? What do you mean, what's the point? You know damn well what the point of the fight is. And don't act like Frank Martin is just too far above Keyshawn to happen. If you don't want the fight to happen right now because you want Frank Martin to focus more on a certain fighter, then say that. But don't try to act like Keyshawn is this little bug that, Frank Martin would just stomp in the first round. It ain't like that at all, and you know it. That's a competitive fight. And again, Keyshawn Davis does have a good chance to win that fight. I would give it like a 60-40. It's not like it's 90-10 or nothing the way Derrick James is talking. What's the point? And if he loses, his career's over. Come on now. Frank Martin beat Michelle Rivera's ass. Is Michelle Rivera over? And Michelle Rivera did he even pop dirty later? Like, just because Frank Martin if he would have beat Keyshawn, that don't mean nobody's career is over. Like, what is he talking about? But enough about that. For the record, I'm totally against what Derrick James is saying about the Frank Martin versus Keyshawn Davis possible bout. I think it should happen. Now, on to track and field. You guys, I'm going to get you a better update before this race happens. But you guys, there's a big showdown in Morocco in about 3 weeks. And Fred Curley, he's out of Texas. And he's our fastest runner pretty much right now. Texas is putting out our top runners because Sha'Carri Richardson, who has been really doing great, and she's Texan, and then Curley is also from Texas. So Curley is going to have a showdown in Morocco against another really fast runner. He represents Italy. His name is Marcel Jacobs. That's his name, Marcel Jacobs. And that's going to be a showdown. But it's not just those two who are going to be at the race. It's going to be Curley, Marcel Jacobs, Bromell. Bromel's inside racing has been amazing. His indoor competitions have been amazing. So it's going to be Curley, Marcel Jacobs, Bromell, who's from Florida. Then there's a Kenyan. He, normally they stick to the long distance, but this Kenyan is like, I'm doing sprinting, and he's really good. His name is Amenanya or something like that. Amenyala. I think that's it. Amenyala. I done butchered the man's name. Amenyala. He's a Kenyan, and he's a really good sprinter. And then there's DeGrasse, who you never count out because he always pulls an upset at the last minute. He's the Canadian. Then there's Noah Lyles, who has, been dominating the 200 meter over the last couple of years until Fred Curley, I think, came along, and maybe another guy too. So this race is going to have Fred Curley, Noah Lyles, Marcel Jacobs, Bromell, Ananyala, DeGrasse, and Johan Blake too. He can't be counted out either, of Jamaica. He's been kind of slipping a little bit, so he's not one of my favorites to win, but he might be there too. So again, this is in about 3 weeks in Morocco. I think Curley is going to take it, but this Marcel Jacobs is no joke either for the 100 meter. So it's going to be a good showdown. And Curley just won the 200 meter in Doha and kind of made it look easy. I expect the time to be anywhere between 9.74 to 9.76-ish. That's what I expect the top timing to be. And I think it'll be really close amongst Curley, Marcel Jacobs, and Bromell. I think they'll be the top three. And then I think Noah Lyles, Amenyala, DeGrasse. Oh, but DeGrasse is always the wild card. He'll come out of nowhere and win it. So as you see, this is going to be a great race. A great race. I'll update you as we get closer to the race, but just keep it in the back of your head. And by the way, Sha'Carri Richardson just did it again. She ran a really great 200 meter in, is it Kenya or Botswana? Somewhere in Africa. She just ran a great 200 meter. And she could have gone even faster because she kind of started celebrating way before the line, because that's how much she was ahead of the rest of the field. But so, yeah, you can say, yeah, but look at her competition. She was way ahead of the rest of the field because a lot of the other really fast 200 meter runners were not there. You can look at it that way, but I look at the time, and that was pretty damn good for her to start celebrating, which means she could go even faster. she can go even faster. So she can go sub 22, you know. I think she finished at like 22:07 for the 200 meter, but that's with her stopping and raising her arms up and celebrating. I wonder how fast she really can go. So Sha'Carri's really doing her thing. She really is. And then she started vomiting. I hope she's okay. And even when she won last week in Doha, she was coughing really bad. So I hope she gets better. But that's it. This is a long video. Have a good day, everyone. Enjoy your day. Salute to Scrapbook Boxing.